The cost of protecting state officials has skyrocketed since Governor Schwarzenegger took office in 2003. The ABC 7 News I-team filed several public records requests to find out just how much has been spent. And Dan Noyes is here now with those results.
Well, Carolyn and Dan, the amount of tax dollars we're spending on bodyguards for public officials has tripled in recent years. It's more than $43 million now. Now, much of that goes to protect our Hollywood star turned governor. But taxpayer advocates are questioning why 5 other state officials with much lower profiles are also getting the movie star treatment.
Please help me welcome Jack O'Connell, our state superintendent of public education.
When California Superintendent of Public Education Jack O'Connell delivered the keynote address at a state PTA meeting in San Jose earlier this year, his plainclothes bodyguard from the California Highway Patrol was there, watching from the sidelines. When you make those visits, do you really feel as though you need a bodyguard?
You know, again, at times, these are visits that are announced ahead of time. We have made some very difficult decisions here in this building under my signature.
After, his bodyguard took the lead as they left through a loading dock.
See ya. Bye-bye.
Walked to an unmarked CHP car and drove off. O'Connell had a flight to catch at San Francisco International.
It really does afford me an opportunity, to work in the car, be efficient, be safe, and I'm grateful for the help and the assistance.
So is it more of a convenience as opposed to a real concern for your safety?
It's really a combination.
I think it's a real problem when politicians start looking to the CHP, trained security and law enforcement personnel, to be their chauffeurs. And that's what's happened.
O'Connell is not the only elected official who gets a personal security detail from the CHP. Along with the governor and lieutenant governor, the CHP also provides bodyguards for the Secretary of State, Treasurer, Insurance Commissioner, and Controller. We filed several public records requests to find out how much it costs to protect all these officials, and we discovered that expenditures at the CHP's Protective Services Division have tripled from $14.4 million in fiscal year 2002-2003 up to more than $43 million the last fiscal year.
Spending $30 million more on security over 6 years just doesn't make sense.
Taxpayer advocate Doug Heller says the government should not be spending so much on bodyguards for officials during a financial crisis.
The amount of expenditures we've seen, especially in the last 5 or 6 years, on security is just out of proportion with reality, especially given the state of our budget.
In the last fiscal year alone, the CHP spent just over $1 million guarding the 5 constitutional officers. More than $224,000 for Superintendent O'Connell, nearly $140,000 for Treasurer Bill Lockyer, more than $170,000 for Secretary of State Deborah Bowen, more than $309,000 for Controller John Chung, and more than $214,000 for Insurance Commissioner Steve Poizner. Poizner's CHP bodyguard even accompanies him while he's out on the campaign trail running for governor.
I would really urge any statewide elected official who uses this detail for personal or other political reasons to begin the process of reimbursing right now and backdate it to the first day they used it for private and personal needs, because that's unacceptable.
We asked Poizner if he would reimburse the state for the cost of using his CHP bodyguard at campaign events when we caught up with him at a press conference last week.
We've studied that question very carefully. Unfortunately, I'm always insurance commissioner no matter what. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, I'm insurance commissioner.
Have you actually personally received threats?
I cannot share that with you. You should check with the CHP.
State Controller John Chung would not discuss specific threats with us, and the CHP declined our requests for an on-camera interview. But records show that the cost of protecting the controller has risen the most among the state's constitutional officers, except for the governor and lieutenant governor, up from nearly $87,000 in fiscal year 2003-2004 to more than $300,000 the last fiscal year. Why is it getting more expensive to protect you?
Well, we just had the worst financial crisis in California history. We're not out of the woods yet.
Chung says some people posted angry messages on the internet after he announced this year that the state was going to delay tax refunds and would pay creditors, businesses, and taxpayers with IOUs instead of cash.
There have been times when I've felt threatened.
Secretary of State Deborah Bowen would not discuss specific threats either, but she says the angry scenes at recent town hall meetings over President Barack Obama's health care plan demonstrate the kind of hostility that elected officials can face at public events.
I want to be accessible, and that means That means I'm on the go, I'm talking to real people, and that comes with some risks.
But some state officials don't just use their bodyguards when they're out in public. When we met Superintendent O'Connell last month inside a secure state building with restricted public access, his CHP bodyguard was right there by his side.
Is the danger real enough to be spending $1 million a year for these lower-level officials?
For me, it's very important to move around the state, to let people know when I'm in a particular community, to be as efficient as possible and make sure that we're traveling as safely as possible.
We called police agencies in the 10 states with the biggest populations, and none of them provide security for lower-level state officials the way we do. In most states, only 2 officials, including the governor, get their own security detail compared to 7 officials that the CHP protects. I'm posting the most important documents from tonight's story in a new iTeam blog at abc7news.com.
Interesting that we stand alone in this.
Yeah, we do. Only state. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Dan.